It is 6 o'clock and we are going to begin.
Easy. I saw it was exhausting.
Hello.
Skype.
Welcome. Tonight, we have two foci. One is economic development. They're both in the transportation category. Economic development and also intersections and operations. And we're going to start with economic development so that Chris Pumphrey can skedaddle when we're finished. Because we didn't really know exactly what moment things were going to, would end from one section to the other. What are we up to? We're presenting an overview of economic development, definition, goals, and areas under consideration so that this group can make a recommendation regarding SPLOST funding for economic development. And then when we switch to the next topic, we're going to present an overview of the intersections and operations section and report on the overlap between what you all named as intersections that are of concern and should be addressed, and the overlap between what you all named and what DCDOT has been thinking of. And then identify things to take into consideration when prioritizing intersections. And finally, we're going to prioritize a list of intersections to be improved with 2016 SPLOST funds, all in 2 hours. So, and I'm not sure that there's anything terribly exciting about the agenda. We're gonna do that sequentially. We are about to have a check-in, and then we'll approve the August 25th minutes that are at your place. And then we'll do our 2 sections and give you homework, because by then it will be, we'll be thinking about sidewalks next week. So, and then I'll tell you what else we might be talking about September 8th, and then have a closing call by 8 o'clock. Okay? The check-in for tonight is we'll go around and we'll begin with Michael. Offer your name and one impression from or a comment about the economic development homework. So we want to sort of get into our economic development thinking. And if you didn't get around to it, just say pass or something like that, because we want to sort of at least start by hearing what you all came up with.
My name is Michael Young, and looking at the questions that we were given and the 2 areas that we were supposed to look at, Thornton Road south of I-20 and Fairburn Road south of I-20, I couldn't put the questions with the property. You get past County Line Road on Fairburn Road, and it's just empty. And you get over the hill on Thornton Road and head down into the, it's empty. So, I'm thinking, okay, sidewalks, walkable, quality of the developed area. I don't understand.
Thank you.
Earl Smith, pass.
Okay.
Al Dobbs, District 4. Let me apologize to the staff and the committee for missing last week's meeting. I was just completely overlooked the schedule, so I apologize to everybody for that. Please forgive me. And I'm also going to pass on comments on the homework.
Mike Karate, District 4. I also apologize for missing last week's. I thought it was every other week. And did the homework, but I'm going to pass on it because I found it confusing.
All right, thank you.
Kenny Campbell, District 4, I'm gonna pass as well.
Okay.
I'm John Sell, District 3, and I'm sorry about last week, but my granddaughter was born, so she's a week old. I'm very, very pleased there. I think my one impression is, how do people get to those locations? How do workers get to the industries that are there, to the, because everything is very, very car driven, and it's almost like the road on Fairburn is set up more for industrial, and the roads in the Thornton corridor are set up more for residential, when it's actually, when you drive down through there, they're kind of reversed.
I'm Susan Arnett with District 3, and I'm anxious to hear what Chris has to say as far as the definitions of what are we talking about diversity. And I think that was part of what I heard from everybody speak. What are we looking at, and what's our direction? Because either one of the areas could possibly be developed for anything we wanted to do with it. But would it be wise?
Marcus Durr, District 2, and my impressions or comments would be that there seems to be a challenge in the planning and access. So again, with the access to the areas, and then what was really the planning associated with it.
The challenge in planning and access to those areas?
Correct.
Uh-huh,
Planning is one, and then access.
got it. Great. Millicent, this is an opportunity. Welcome. Welcome. What we are doing right now is going around offering our names and one impression from or comment about the economic development homework. And you could pass if you wanted to, as some people have.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, you have the minutes in front of you from last week's meeting that some of you did not get to participate in. I hope you have read them because they came out, I think, the day after. And I am in the market for someone to move for approval.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone? Any other thoughts? Okay. Thank you. Okay, I think it's time, especially with this set of impressions, it's time to talk about economic development and learn what we can about economic development in general in Douglas County, and then specifically what people in the county have been thinking about and talking about. So, I don't know whether Randy is introducing Chris, whether everybody knows Chris Pumphrey. You'll do it yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you for your commitment. I'll stand on this side. Thank you for your commitment to this effort and for the SPLOST program. I'm Chris Pumphrey. I'm with the Douglas County Economic Development Authority. I serve as the executive director for that organization. I'll start off a little bit about what economic development is, kind of targeted from the standpoint of how we approach economic development, and really kind of get into the nuts and bolts and whys of the homework. So hopefully we can make it a little bit clearer. In essence, the name in and of itself is pretty, to some extent, self-explanatory. It's all about growing the economy of whatever jurisdiction you're trying to grow. So for Douglas County, it's for us, it's specifically Douglas County. We do that through business recruitment. Historically, we've just focused on industrial development. We focus on existing business support, and that's primarily on a lot of the larger businesses. We historically have not gotten involved with retail or small business or things like that. And it's through policies that continue to foster economic growth in a community, and then in the marketing of the community. I use the word historically in front of all of those things because we actually are just now about to launch a strategic plan. And that strategic plan is going to be centered around what's a vision and brand for the community as a whole. How do we address small business? What are some target business sectors that we need to go after and recruit? What are some sites that we want to develop as business parks? Looking at the overall quality of life for the community. Also ensuring that the economic development that we are doing is for the betterment of all of the citizens of Douglas County. So whether you're the very highly educated or the not so highly educated. And then really targeting targeting our benchmarks and how we achieve those efforts, and then really bringing in some level of a civic infrastructure. What type of non-governmental support can we kind of help generate to really kind of take the community to the next level? So that is in essence kind of how we approach economic development, and then kind of where we're headed. So that process is going to start within the next month or two, and probably take about a 6 to 8 month time frame. There'll be a lot of public engagement, so hopefully as you all have committed to this process, you'll be committed to participating in that process as well, because it's really all about how do we want to develop and grow Douglas County. So as we take that approach and we look at, we start looking ahead in diversity of development. And so when we say diversity, kind of in our homework, it's about what are the options, the development options that are out there. So you can go down Fulton Industrial, you could primarily say it's not diverse, it's all industrial, and pretty much old industrial, and maybe a McDonald's and a Quick Trip here and there, but that is the type of development. And so when we look at the county, we're looking at how diverse are our corridors, for development. If you're on the far southwestern side of the county, what is that atmosphere like for you there? What is the atmosphere like for you on the northeast side of the county? So we're looking at the county as a whole. So if you look around the room, there are these maps around the room, and that's what we have kind of targeted as our corridors for development. And so you'll see the highlights around there, and it's just taking straight lines and looking at where are the growth opportunities and maybe some of the needs for diversity in the development option. So that's really what we're talking about in that development realm. So,
Should we get these closer to people?
sure.
People to look at, so.
Do your current zoning, does the current zoning support diversity, or
That becomes all a part of the strategy. And
we're not gonna put residential right next to light industrial,
They are.
Well, in some instances, it's happening. And part of that is we actually have a master plan going on right now on the east side of the county. So pretty much if you take a backward C around Sweetwater Creek State Park, and you've got a master plan going on in that area. Part of the issue has been is we've had this clash of residential and light industrial development, truck traffic and automobile traffic. And it's caused a lot of heartache, a lot of concerns. There's been a lot of public outcry as it relates to a lot of those things. And so what we're trying to do is put together a master plan around that area to really figure out how do you find the right mix of diversity and development, but then also the infrastructure to support it. So as we look at the region as a whole, the Metro Atlanta region is supposed to grow. We're at about 5.5 million people or so right now. We're supposed to grow by a few million more by 2020 or 2022, whenever that time frame is. But if you look at Atlanta like a clock, 12 o'clock is Georgia 400, and 9 o'clock is pretty much, let's say, Douglas County, 3 o'clock Rockdale, and Henry County at 6. The majority of the development is kind of right now between the 10 and the 2. And then if you look around between 2 and 6, it's you're dealing with kind of like the granite and things that come out of Stone Mountain, but that's pretty much all developed as well. But it's when you get to the 6 to the 9 is where the vast majority of development potential is. And so a lot of that growth is going to go where the development opportunities are. There's only but so far north you can go in Metro Atlanta. And so that growth is going to come, and there's really nothing we can do about it. But what we can do is come up with plans and strategies that allow that growth to be smart, that allow for that we do not become overly congested. For those of us who enjoy that 10-minute ride to the grocery store, we don't want it to turn into 30. So how do we develop the community in a way that we maintain that quality of life that we all enjoy, but also continue to welcome people that come into the community just like they welcomed us when we came to the community. So we're targeting these corridors to try and find that mix of development. And so as you see there, there's about, we define it as 5. The purple in the middle is really 2 different corridors. One primarily is the Highway 92 going north and south. I think there was some discussion earlier about the 92 bypass, but we're also focusing on 92 headed south. And then the other one is Lee Road, which intersects Highway 92. So those are really 2 corridors in total of 5 corridors altogether. And so we're looking at these 5 corridors, you know, for how do we plan them out the right way? How do we plan out the land use, so planning and zoning? How do we plan out the infrastructure to support it? And then what's the economic development strategy to go along with that? So that's what we're looking at. The homework asked you to look at 2 of these areas, and those 2 areas were the southwest Thornton corridor, and then the Lee Road, the Fairburn Road corridor. And the reason why we focused in on those 2 is because that's where we're seeing the majority of the pressure right now. And that pressure is even more intense on the southwest Thornton corridor. So as you may have seen in that area, it was old, I think John may have said, you know, the infrastructure over there is really set up for residential when you really have a lot of light industrial. And then the flip side was it's set up for light industrial, but you have a lot of residential. Well, what we're looking at is what are those development opportunities, how we can create the diversity mix on that east side that also accommodates the existing residential along with the existing light industrial. They're there, there's nothing you can do about it, so how do you make it complementary? But then how can you provide some diversity within that area? We've had, you know, some rezonings, like I said, in that area that have been challenged, and so we're looking at how do we solve those challenges in that area. So, the map that you had there kind of outlined that corridor, that study area. Kimberly Horn is doing that right now. In that study, we'll be looking at what's the existing land use, what could be, what else could be developed in that area, and then, like I said earlier, what's the infrastructure to support that growth. One of the greatest things that we look in this area is it's the same road as the world's busiest airport. It's probably the largest economic engine in the state of Georgia. So it's on the same road as Hartsfield-Jackson. That's Thornton Road. That area primarily is within a mile or 2 miles of I-20. If you were to get out of your car and you were standing on one of the hills over there in that Factory Shows area, you're looking right on into downtown Atlanta. And then, to add on top of that, you've got the state's most daytime visited park, which is Sweetwater Creek State Park, right in the background. And so it's an opportunity that we see to really capitalize on those strengths and those assets to develop this corridor in the right way. But you accommodate the existing residential, you invite different types of development in the area, and that still blends in with the light industrial corridor. What we don't want to be is Fulton Industrial in 30 years. So the issue that Fulton Industrial is going through right now is that they realize it's the highest concentration of industrial development east of the Mississippi. And it's ridden with crime, it's ridden with prostitution, it's ridden with dilapidated buildings. It does not have a diversity mix in there. It doesn't have the livelihood in there that keeps it thriving. And what we're trying to do is to prevent that in Douglas the best way we possibly can by introducing some diversity of development in there. But then also control it to the best we can too by having infrastructure that supports it. So we've been working with the state park on this plan as well. We'll be having some stakeholder meetings with the residents out in that area as well, and the landowners in there so that we can come up with a quality plan. And this starts to be the model for the rest of the corridors that you see there on the map. So that's the area 1. And then area 2 is Lee Road. And if you're driving down Fairburn Road, you kind of went past the public safety building, we went past some of the older grocery stores, and then it just kind of became a little bit more wide open. The county has what they call an LCI in place, and it has design standards over Fairburn Road. And
LCI.
That's Livable Centers Initiative. And you start to see the fruits of that LCI once you get to the intersection of Lee Road and 92. So if you notice the Walgreens with the all brick, was it Old Victorian, I believe is the style.
Yeah, the street trees, the fencing.
The fencing and all of those things. The Tractor Supply back there, they said it's the most expensive tractor supply they've ever built. That's because of the design standards that are in place that require the all brick and things like that. So that's the design standard that's in place for the entirety of the LCI. Now, the reason all the buildings along Fairburn Road don't look like that right now is because they were there before the LCI was in place. And until there's a change in business or a change in aesthetics to the building or what have you, then they're gonna remain how they are. But for all new development, it's really gonna start looking like that Highway 92 and Lee Road corridor. And around that area, you may have noticed some signs for land that's for sale. So there's a large tracts of acreage around that intersection that what we really see is great development potential, and even as you continue to go further back. And when we say development potential in that particular area, we are not talking industrial. The industrial pretty much is going to stop where it is. It's not going to go any further as we're talking about these corridors right here. And so we're talking about a diversity of mix in that area that also is a higher quality development. You think of developments like Tributary and kind of how they started and really have the vision for that still is how do you continue that effort along this corridor as well, but maybe some more office that's added in there. Maybe some more mixed use developments that are added in there. But what really makes that corridor really can be able to thrive is the ability to connect from Lee Road and I-20 over to Chapel Hill. And making that connection opens up a whole new corridor, which was deemed the southern inner arc, but really you can kind of look at it as our own east-west connector. And how are you're providing now another option for all the residents that are on Chapel Hill, that are coming up Chapel Hill to get to I-20, but maybe you reroute them. And as you reroute them and increase traffic counts, now you're really creating a whole new marketplace. And so that new marketplace becomes that intersection of Lee Road and 92, where the land is already there. Now you make the connection, now it becomes more attractive. Now you see how that area starts to fill in. And what we're saying is put in the infrastructure now such that you're not trying to clear out older development. You're not trying to clear out Fulton Industrial in order to make a new marketplace. You have the opportunity to do the new marketplace right now, and it's mostly greenfield. So those are the reasons why we wanted you to get your opinions and feedback on those two particular areas, because we really see a lot of potential there. And as I said, we'll roll out this process in further corridors, but right now we felt that those are the two that we really needed to put most of our attention on. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, Chris, why don't you show them the vision and the map?
So what we did, thank you, that's the reason we printed these maps. So what we did was, we did an exercise, myself, Randy, Tracy Rye, and a few others, to really say, all right, let's take that Thornton Road, Southwest Thornton Road corridor. And so as, I tell folks, from a development perspective, you can kind of see things differently. If you don't have a development perspective, you might just say, well, what's the point of being here? But if you really look at the potential of land use, you can really do some nice creative things. So if you take that map, the one with the red outlines, you're talking over 1,000 acres, well, more like 1,500 acres that we're looking at studying. And the core of that being right there around the Sweetwater Creek State Park on the east side, the Factory Shoals area. And so what we did was we took these here and really started to lay out what the potential of that area could be. So when we talk about a diversity of options, what we're talking about here is, maybe a village center that's, more mixed use oriented. Kind of think of avenues, but not all retail, but maybe it's more office and some commercial, mixed in there. Maybe more mixed use residential along the state park. People right now, they love to walk, they love recreation. And to be able to have the state park at your backyard, if I can just walk out of my house, go walk my dog, go out with my kids or things like that, there's value there. There's value in the green space, and that's what we're really trying to take advantage of. One of the things we're also looking at is a technology zoning designation. We don't have that here in Douglas County. and looking at the potential of having something like that where you have more Googles of the world that could be here, where you have more R&D type facilities that could be here. All of that built upon the fact that they're right against the state park, on the same road as the world's busiest airport, less than a mile from the interstate, and views in the downtown Atlanta. And I used to work in Midtown, and from this side of the county, a ride into work in the morning at most is about 35 minutes. So, you know, it's a perfect area, you know, to really be able to capitalize on. And so as you see this diversity of uses, we've now taken the lid off to say it's not just industrial, but it has other potential. But that potential is only there if we kind of plan it out right, put the infrastructure in there that supports it, and now we really have something great that we can continue to build upon. And as I said, that's the goal and strategy to carry that forward throughout the rest of the community.
On the residential, most people are not gonna wanna live in a residential area where you have to drive between distribution centers to get to it. So you're gonna have to improve access to the residential so that people don't have that impression I'm driving between million-square-foot buildings to get to my house.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. And I think you can achieve that with the right infrastructure, the way you route things, the way you look at, you know, traffic patterns and things like that. There's controls that the community can put in to ensure that. The reality, however, right now is we already have that. So we already have a number of residents that are living in that area, and they're actually still building houses, you know, out there,
Nice houses.
amongst those, you know, million-square-foot facilities. But you're right. In order to continue that path, there has to be a plan that accommodates and truly says, you know, this is what this area is designed for, and you don't have to worry about, you know, being encroached upon even further.
So, the mixed-use residential, will that be in play?
That's the hope. So I should have put the disclaimer out there. This was really just a concept that we did internally. But yeah, the thought is that it's something like that. When we hired the consultant, the only thing they've seen is the map in front of you. We told them that we wanted diversity of uses, but we didn't want to cloud their judgment, or maybe they could be more creative as need been. So we haven't really shown this to them, but this was just more conceptual of what could be done. But yeah, but that's the idea, is you're thinking of things like that.
Yeah, and it's driven by market analysis too. So I just want to add one thing to what Chris said, and that is, I mean, the real issue, the crux of the issue here is sustainability over time. You heard him say, we don't want the Thornton Road area to look like Fulton Industrial in 30 years, or maybe even sooner. Because it's going to cost you a lot more money to go back and reinvent that if you get to that point than it would if you mold it as you develop. So the intent here is to try and put seed money, economic development seed money, into these areas and get consensus among the property owners about how we want it to develop, and use that seed money to leverage that vision by saying, if you will develop in accordance with this vision, we will help with certain pieces of infrastructure. So it's sort of a public-private partnership to achieve a vision. So, and the intent is to try and achieve a vision that's sustainable over time. We cannot sustain where we're headed with State Route 6 right now. It's not sustainable because there's no daytime activity. It doesn't feel like a sense of community. It feels very transient. You know, at night, there's no nightlife. There's no vesting in the community. So it's really about sustainability, and that's what it's like a tale of two cities with these two sites. We've got one site that we're getting all kind of development pressure on. And if we can't put some skin in the game and say, this is how it's got to be, and we're going to help build the infrastructure to make it be this way, then we're going to lose. The county's going to lose. The same is true with the Lee Road extension, the Lee Road corridor, the 92 corridor. If we can shape and mold that into something that we want, then we don't have to deflect or try and deflect these undesirable development types that are gonna come in and put pressure to use the land just because they can get it. But if we've got an investment in the area and a vision that goes along with that investment, and we leverage one against the other, then there's opportunity to bring higher and better quality growth.
Because these developments are coming no matter what.
Exactly.
They're coming.
We have a call every week. I had a call recently from a group who wanted to put a 1 million square foot distribution center right there. And I got another call 2 days ago, but so I'm there, the pressure is there. So it's not a will it happen? It's gonna happen. It's up to us to determine how we control it.
Chris, I have a question for you. How are you gonna, with SPLOST money, $10 million, how are you gonna do that with just $10 million?
So the target with it is for the road infrastructure, and Randy said it's seed money. So whatever the amount is that goes towards this area is going to be for a lot of the rerouting of the roads, expansion of the roads, realignment of some of those roads, but it's also going to come in accordance with the developers, so like we're all coming at this together and then pursuing outside funds to really make it happen.
Well, and let me point out too that it's a situation where if you go out into this area and you go 500 feet off of State Route 6 on Factory Shoals Road, you're all of a sudden going into an area that looks like it's, backdated into the 1950s. I mean, it's old rural roads, but there's pressure for all that property to be developed. So, we don't know going forward in the future what type of mechanism we can put in place. One thing that Chris hadn't mentioned is we got a study underway right now. And as a part of that study, there will be a vision developed with stakeholder input. There will be an infrastructure plan that goes along with that matches up to the vision. And as development comes to us, we will then determine how we need to prioritize those pieces of infrastructure as the development comes in. And we'll use other opportunities and other fundings to supplement, other funding mechanisms to supplement the seed money that's a part of this SPLOST money. We want to take a portion of the SPLOST money and direct it to either both or one of these areas and really try and make that money grow by leveraging what we can leverage through state and federal funds and other grant opportunities, and even from development itself. I mean, if somebody comes in and says they want to build a nice residential development adjacent to Sweetwater Creek State Park, we've already had meetings with Sweetwater Creek State Park folks, the state parks director. They want to engage with us in doing that, and they want to provide. If we offered an opportunity to put some Class A office space, if somebody came and we had an opportunity to put some Class A office space out there and connect it into Sweetwater Park so that people during their lunch break could go take a walk on a trail at Sweetwater Creek State Park, or get out and be a part of that gym that sits there unnoticed in that area, then we can facilitate that by taking some of this seed money and building pieces of infrastructure that creates and fits into this vision. These things don't happen overnight. You got to get the ball rolling, set the vision, get it started, and then once we're able to do that with skin in the game, so to speak, word gets around. Chris is in the economic development business. He knows that, when the development community hears what's going on in Douglas County, then they're going to start to look at land, they're going to start to look at the vision, they're going to start to look at the plan, and they're going to come to us and they're going to say, if we did this, how could we work together to make this happen? We might say no. If it doesn't fit with our plan, the answer is no. If it fits with our plan, then yeah, maybe we can engage in something like that.
Do we do this through zoning? Is that we accept that this is the design and we say, okay, it's zoned for this? Is that how you do it?
Well, I think it's a combination of the outputs from the study that we're having done right now, which will have a market analysis piece, an infrastructure evaluation piece, a land appraisal piece or a land planning piece, and all of those fit together. And yes, to answer your question, there would be a necessity to go back to the Board of Commissioners and say, here's the vision that's been delivered through this study effort. Here's the infrastructure priorities. Would you adopt this as an institutional policy for this area? Or would you zone these properties to achieve this plan? I mean, everything goes back to the board for approval, but we didn't just come up with this. The board is aware that we've done this and we're doing this study, and they bought into the idea. Now, they may want to tweak things when we bring it back, but.
And I'll also add to that, so both the northern end and the southern end of the study are in the city limits of Douglasville. So this is a joint effort. So you have both the city council and board of commissioners are very much engaged in this, and we have both have adopted a moratorium on the area. So they're both kind of on the same page, matching the moratorium for the study area, and actually looking to extend the moratorium to line up with the study. So we have board and council member support for it.
That includes Riverside Parkway.
It's Riverside Parkway up to the creek.
Because I know you get on Riverside Parkway, you're in the county, then all of a sudden you're in the city, and then you're in the county again.
Yeah. It's Riverside up to the creek.
I've noticed that you have a very detailed layout for the factory shows and Thornton Road projection, but what about Lee Road and Highway 92?
So we do have those actually even more detailed than what we have here. This is conceptual.
Yeah. The plan for Lee Road, we're about 3 or 4 months away from hopefully letting the Lee Road project to widen Lee Road to 4 lanes with a median. It'll have sidewalks and a trail system on one side of the road, all the way up to the new interchange at I-20 and Lee Road. One of the things that we're just starting to work on is a project called Lee Road Extension, and we just got project framework agreements back from the state recently, where our intent is to, if you've been out and you see where the Walgreens and Tractor Supply, you see a road that goes off and stops back there. That road is ultimately planned to go all the way over and connect to Beaumar Road, which ultimately connects to Chapel Hill Road, crosses Chapel Hill Road, all the way to Central Church Road, via Central Church Road, all the way to Highway 5, and really, in fact, you can go all the way over to Bright Star Road from that connection. Now, all that's part of a greater plan. We're focusing on the missing link, which is that portion of the road that's missing today. So we've just entered into agreements with the state to start the design of that project and to do a validation and scoping study. So, you know, there is a method to what's going on here. Lee Road interchange, Lee Road extension. And again, as Chris said, right now, commuter trips that leave their homes in the gut of the county around Central Church Road, Chapel Hill Road, all that dense residential corridor, they have to go north on Chapel Hill Road for the most part to go east on I-20 to get into the activity centers around the region. We've got reserve capacity at the Lee Road interchange now. What this will allow people to do is that live on Chapel Hill Road is to start to move east and west and make a more direct trip to get to Interstate 20. And they have other options as well via other interchanges along the route. But what that will do is it creates that more dynamic workplace or market area around 92 and Lee Road. That's what creates that market area. The people who did the Livable Centers Initiative study indicated that the linchpin of creating that market area around Lee Road and State Route 92 was contingent upon the Lee Road extension. That's where you get the access to the rooftops that makes that market area more viable for restaurants, shops, maybe institutional buildings, government satellite centers, parks, walkable streetscapes, and other amenities in that area that would bring it up to a higher level.
So how much are you talking for, how much is that Lee Road extension? From the money that's in here for economic development, how much of that money are you projecting to go towards the Lee Road extension? How much are you projecting to go towards
we're not projecting anything, John. We're asking you to tell us if you agree with these two focus areas. And then as staff, and as we look at development pressure, and as we get the outputs from this plan for this area, we want to then direct funding to these two areas or one of these areas based on the development pressure that we're getting and based on what would get us the biggest bang for the buck. That's the real crux of the issue.
So, do you have anything else to present before we do our Q&A effort? Is there anything else?
No, I think, as Randy said, talking about the Lee Road, if you kind of just look at that, this didn't do a great job of showing it to you, but that Lee Road and this corridor are really bracketing the state park. And I'll say that's probably one of Douglas County's biggest assets. Right now, we have over 8,000 acres of dedicated recreational space in the county, and that's aside from ball fields and soccer fields and gyms and all that stuff. So we really want to do a great job of taking advantage of that natural beauty and not destroying it.
How much coordination do you do with Douglas County Tourism? Because they're starting a Naturally Douglas program to bring people out here to see the sights of Douglasville. And obviously, State Park with shopping right next door.
Very, very closely. So we partnered together on a film trail that's going to be rolling out later this month. So Colin and then the Douglas County CDP and Breezy in our office partnered together on that project. And the Young Game Changers program did a lot into that Naturally Douglas plan. So yeah, we've been very, very much engaged with everything that we're doing.
What I was thinking that we would do as soon as the explanation has been made is to have you all talk with each other in small groups to figure out both what you heard, because what happens is that Michael will have heard something different from what Mel thought and heard different from Pearl. And what we're trying to do is sort of share our experience. So I wanted to be able to go into small groups where you'll go around, and let me tell you who the small groups would be so you can think about that. The three of you, Michael, Mela, and Pearl, Al and Mike together, Kenny and John and Susan together, and Marcus and Daphne together. Share one thing that you heard, and maybe that links to one question that you have. And then hear the questions in your group and decide which is the most important question among them that you want to ask that will help the group conversation. So that helps, let me just explain, that helps sometimes people who are uncomfortable about asking questions in a big group. And so basically this is a way for everybody really to touch the material and to surface what we really need to exchange with each other before you all would feel comfortable about what they're asking for approval on. Okay?
Okay.
So.
Go ahead.
Had like a lodge.
Just move over there. Yeah, just move over there for this conversation. You're moving and there are two over here. What I'm really working on, proactive. Sorry, I just forgot.
We wanted to ask this.
More value as well as you don't have funds to attend the games, so we kind of outlaw.
So if we made it look,
But then he also
and
said,
it's kind of like,
what they're trying to do.
we tell them how that, county tells them how that's going to work. Now, it could be, they just have to start development. No, I ain't saying us, but I'm saying county.
Doesn't fit county, we have that.
So you understand that
People own this thing, right? We don't.
I don't understand what
But they own things.
Unfortunately, I'm jaded because they've had stuff in place before, like you was mentioning along Riverside Road, and they abandoned some of that. So I would like to know, just because they have a plan that they put on paper, is that, you know, are they gonna tell warehouse people to know they're not gonna do it? Because that's not what they're doing. They had a plan for Riverside, and they abandoned it. So them having a nice picture in this process, you can do that anywhere in the county or city, but they don't have the backbone that they're trying to do in the communities.
That's what I'm saying, where's the support?
You have a lot of them now.
Where's the support? Where's their background?
Very well.
How they raise the money to put the right players in the system?
How long are they willing to say no to development?
Well, it drives the traffic back, it drives the traffic back.
If they want to put more residential.
See, they're already,
Because I know 10 million really not much. It's not much, but you've got.
That's not gonna help drive any traffic that's down here, it's still going to 20.
right, that's going.
And when there's
But
problems,
that's where all,
I can tell you
that's where all
now,
these people.
they exit here.
But what
go to
we're saying
Riverside.
is the most population.
Right, here's Chapel Hill right here. So they're saying they're trying to direct this
Well, they're already coming this way.
Well, some come that way, but we still get a lot of traffic from this way.
Yeah. The only time they come this way is when he is backed up. If there's an accident or anything else in plan, they're coming this way. Because I see it.
So the question is, but, okay, but why in this road? What is it that's gonna happen? Okay, they're saying you already
They're widening
directed
this
that.
road.
This road right here.
They're not touching any of these existing roads.
Okay, so they're gonna widen this road, so this road right here is gonna be, what's the question? Because if they're already going this way,
No, my question was, if this is helping all of Douglasville, I was asked the question, how is extending this road helping anyone other in this area? And you said that you believe the greatest concentration of people are living in this area.
It is, because this is a lot of farmers.
So the greatest concentration of people live in this area, then that's how it is.
well, I guess you look into this, how we see subdivisions.
Excuse me, I hope that you have heard from every single person around what, one thing you heard and one question you have. And now the instruction is to decide on one, max 2 questions. And it will help when you decide that question, when you ask the question, to say this is for Randy or this is for Chris. So they'll listen up. Okay?
Yeah, this is still where we were, that's where they're gonna build the west end, and I think it changed or something.
That's the, Foxhall.
Oh, is it?
Up here, right
So I would agree with
So the Foxhall
it's down here.
it connects to South Fulton, so it dead end at Cap City. And 166.
So the one thing I heard, I think I would agree with Daphne, one thing I heard is there are 4 ways of, what would you say? How did you define what you heard? I thought it was good, that's why.
Yeah, now, you go ahead.
Your question?
We're getting there, not yet.
Yeah, because I'm trying to,
We had the expenses, but we didn't have questions. Do you have a question?
The only question I had is how is their planning here going to differ than any of the other planning they've done, like along Riverside? Yeah. Are they?
We have shown that you have not been able to keep
You're still, they've abandoned plans just because people want to make money with their work. Now you come up with another plan for this area. What does it truly mean if you're not going to?
What's the difference? What's the difference now than?
That's my point question.
Well, see, and I didn't know they had plans before, so. But it seems like they're trying to be single, but they have partners. You know, maybe investors come into Douglas County.
Restaurant stuff like that, maybe.
Anybody want water?
Right, but you don't put a truck line right there where you'll have the trucks, that would destroy the piece of
They brought Chris in.
Came in just.
Okay, welcome back. Whether you have your question or you might be inspired by another group's question, I'm going to invite Randy and Chris to come up here or stand at least so people can see you all. And I'm going to start with this group here, who they said they had a lot of questions, and if you would say whether it's for Chris or for Randy in the beginning, it will help them to sort of listen up. If it's for both, say both.
I don't know about the one thing we heard a lot of things. I seem to have heard that this is a priority because you've got growth there that you need to curtail. You've got a moratorium. I seem to have heard that, but I construed a lot of things with that. One of our questions about this area is, in order to do this, are you going to have to offer a lot of tax incentives that will reduce the revenue of the city?
Nothing out of the norm of what we already
The
do.
norm is pretty significant.
Well, yeah, what I'm saying,
30-year,
I'd say that's not the norm, that's very much outside the norm.
30 years.
Yeah, the standard is 5 to 10 years, yeah. And that's pretty much, if you look at just about every project that's out there, except for the one that's just Foxhall, they're all 5 to 10 years.
And not just here.
And not just here, yeah.
Okay, you all down there, your question?
Yes.
Yes.
On the, we're not really sure who to direct it to, but on the mixed-used residential area, why not, or can we include that or make that to a more attractable area of shopping, maybe like restaurants, still let it be an outdoor facilities. I know I use Savannah's Riverwalk, and other places I could.
Like a town center.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so mind you, that right there was purely us saying, just based on what we have here and the assets we have here, we could do these things, but that is in no way the plan. The master plan, which is being done by Kimley Horn, they will actually produce a map that has color codes and highlights and things. It may not be that. It's unlikely to be that because they haven't seen it.
Okay.
So there will be a plan created. Like I said, all we were trying to just put down on paper and really capture is, you really do have enough land right here where you could do an office park here. You really do have enough land here where you could do mixed use. You really do have a way that you can do technology. We were just really trying to figure out how pieces could fit together, but the plan itself, so for instance, right now, they've completed phase 1, the land suitability analysis, and what have you. So we're gonna see that week after next.
When will that be ready?
It'll be, the whole thing will be completed by March 20th, or somewhere thereabout.
Yeah, and let me just add to what Chris said. And like he said, this is just an example. We're not saying that this is what should occur out there. We want to go through the right process. He just mentioned that they're doing a land suitability analysis. Topography is pretty challenging out there. You can't always put every type of development because development costs could be higher than normal. But if you took a vision and you put it in place and you said, you know, we want to capture this area and put certain types of development that fit with the topography adjacent to the state park, and we want to transition to other uses as you move out closer to State Route 6 that are more higher and more intense and would be more suitable for passerby trips, restaurants, shops, things like that, maybe hotels. That's what they're going to look at in their market analysis. They're doing land suitability analysis. They're going to do a market analysis, which will look at both existing and available undeveloped land. How could it be all made to work together based on land suitability, based on market, and based on the infrastructure, which is either there today or is not there. If we want to try and achieve that plan that they ultimately come up with, then what is the infrastructure that's got to be infused into that area to support that type of vision and that type of plan? And that's what this is really about, is building a plan, a vision that's more sustainable for long term, but at the same time, you know, directing infrastructure toward a plan so that we've got leverage to make that plan happen.
And to your point, we were thinking about that, kind of what you were describing, that was kind of like the village center idea. You know, that could go against the park if it goes through, but that was kind of the idea we were thinking about.
Okay, because I think it was you who said this is one of the county's biggest assets,
The park.
the park,
Yeah.
and it's not being used currently right now.
Well, it's
But I
being
think
used.
it's being used.
It's not being interfaced and it's not being included in the planning process for these areas that are adjacent to the park.
Yeah, so right here, actually, if you were in either one of those parcels, you would have to drive about 5 miles to get in the park, even though the park is right there. So part of what we're talking about, kind of where you see the green space, the idea is that you create a new entrance with a nice like pervious parking, like green space area that people could park their cars, have a trail, an entrance trail into the park. So that's kind of the idea there. It's really making the park an asset versus just being.
And unless I'm wrong, mixed use could be bottom floor restaurants, shops, and then apartments above, or townhomes or whatever above, like they've done it in Smyrna, like they've done it in Vinings, like they've done it in other places.
Is that mixed use residential?
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't think that commercial could come in.
absolutely.
So this,
That's why you have the mixed use, so you have the two of them together, so you have the work, play, or shop and entertain.
I thought it was just apartment, you know.
along with the housing.
Okay.
so this group, do you have a question? And then we'll go around again.
I'm talking about it, the Lee Road extension connecting with Beaumont Road, that'd be both of y'all, I guess. What about, that's all residential, what are them people gonna think about putting a major highway right by their house?
I wouldn't say it's probably a major highway, but a couple
We're
of
being
things.
divided,
It'd be a 4-lane road, so
people will,
be a lot of traffic. And those are, a lot of the homes are half-acre lots, so you're talking about taking half their front yards.
Sure.
I'm just saying, what kind of consideration is the county giving to the homes? Are they gonna buy them all out, so
Well,
that's not a problem for them?
Look, much of the land to put that missing link in, is green. Now, where the tie-in at Beaumont Road is at, going out towards Chapel Hill Road, that's along the existing alignment of Beaumont Road. So yes, ultimately, that's an issue for the future. But look, we did a comprehensive transportation plan in 2008. And one of the things that came out of that plan is the problem that we have with mobility in this county is a lack of an arterial base. We don't have a good arterial system. We've got roads that used to be horse and buggy trails that are now carrying 21st century automobiles and some of them are rolling hills and they're curvy. Traffic's gonna move at whatever direct point toward their destination they can find, as long as it's moving. So we've got traffic on Hope Road, we've got traffic on other roads, and those roads are reasonably good roads, but they're not suitable for, high volume, high capacity demand. The demand is there, we just don't have the roads. So at some point, the county's gonna have to make up its mind, where are our priorities in developing a transportation network that serves the needs both today and in the future. So, when these things occur by federal law, if we use federal dollars, we have to have public information, open houses. We have to go through processes to make certain that we're doing the right thing when it comes to engaging people and their property. Now, what I will tell you in the preliminary work that we've done is that Central Church Road, a lot of those homes that front along Central Church Road, they're rental properties for a lot of people, So it's not like we're not looking a little bit further ahead, but, those are issues that are gonna have to be ferreted out and discussed and talked about. But this missing link, this piece of missing link road, when we put the word out about 8 years ago, the people who own the property came to us and said, hey, we think this is a great idea. They saw the value of it. But yeah, nothing's perfect. We've got to work through those things, but we've got to look at what's best for the growth of this county over time. We're probably going to be looking at a population of just over 200,000 within the next 15 years. So, we're going to have to deal with it, and mobility is going to be a big part of it.
This group, what question do you all have?
Personally, I think part of it is going to be challenging now because you said this was just a sample. So you're asking us to actually comment on stuff with us without having a realistic base on what we're going to have to do. But one of the questions that we had, whether it's shared or not, is that we know that we've tried doing zoning and other things for other areas, just like the one you mentioned along Riverside. And although you had a plan, it never really came to fruition, so how is this going to be any different? I mean, we've had plans, we've had zoning, but we're trying to figure out now, how is this going to be any different? We're constantly coming with plans and zonings that we abandon. So how long are you going to hold out to say we're going to build technologies in here before you say, okay, let's just build a warehouse?
Fair argument. I would say, let's tackle Riverside more specifically. The zonings in there pretty much were, there's some litigations in there that were outside of, I would say, city jurisdiction, where at least one of the particular properties was zoned the way it is. As it relates to this area, I think that the biggest component to it, and I don't want to take up too much time in this because my 5.5 years of being here is really trying to figure out how do we come to the point of having strong and solid plans that we can stick to, because I'm very much familiar with everything you just described. But specifically what we're talking about in this area is the skin in the game component. And when you put the skin in the game, it's very much more difficult to step away from any of that. And so what we're saying is, instead of the development community coming to us and saying this is how we want to develop, we're going to the development community and saying this is how we want to develop. And I think that's the biggest difference. Before, it's always been the doors are open, come tell us what your idea is, versus now we're going to tell you what the vision is, and that's how the buy-in comes in. So that's, I believe, is the biggest difference now versus before. And like I said, I've been kind of working on this for the past 5.5 years now, getting us to a point that we can actually say that. And so to the point now, never before have we had a moratorium between both the city and the county, because we have had that issue. And that's the reason why we've had the challenges we're having now, is because we've had that conflict of not sticking to a plan. And so that's why we put the moratorium out there, to tell the development community, look, I know you want to develop, look, I know you're scared about what the market's going to be after either Trump or Hillary get into office, but that's not our problem. Our problem right now is figuring out what the plan is, establishing it, and then if you fit, we welcome you, but if you don't, sorry. And that is the truth of kind of how we're approaching this.
So one last question, really, we need to get to the questions and then call the question.
So
Daphne.
is the skin in the game, the $10 million or the skin in the game is the infrastructure that you're about to put out?
Well, the dollars go to the infrastructure. The dollars are for the infrastructure. So.
The dollars are seed money for the infrastructure.
Oh, okay, the seed money and with intentions on raising more money through investors. Okay.
I do have one quick question. So let's just say that this is not, that you don't get this money, will you still go forward? You just won't have seed money?
We'll still have a master plan. We'll still figure out whatever we can do to put controls on the zoning and things like that. But as you've seen in both of this area in particular, it needs the infrastructure. And so this is how it works. If the developer comes in and the developer has the funding for the infrastructure, the developer gets what the developer invests in. And so if the community puts the investment into the infrastructure planning for the growth in the future, then the community gets what the community's planning for. And that really becomes the difference. And that's how it's worked. Development community say, look, I've got, $50 million that I'm going to put in the ground, and then I'm going to build this road. And, unless there's some legal means as to why I can't do it, I'm going to do it. And so
but
that's.
the developer doesn't build the road. They invest the money in the land, and then you basically have the road or infrastructure that's still inadequate.
The road, well, they build the roads that get turn over to the county.
I would disagree with that. I don't see where the developer is building any roads other than, say, a road within his own development. The road that leads to the road that leads to the development is still going to be owned by the county, and if it doesn't support what the developer has built, then you don't have the infrastructure for the development once it's there.
Well, and you make a good point, and that's exactly what happened in the Thorn Road area. Was I stood before the Board of Commissioners and I said, look, these folks have offered to do as much as I can have them do to support this development, but it isn't enough because we don't have enough infrastructure out here. The board shut the development down. They didn't approve it. But if we have seed money to do some of these projects, and I'll use Factory Shelf Road as an example. We've got development right now that's trying to knock the door down to get on the Factory Shelf Road. There is no way in the world that I can approve a development permit on that existing road with the alignment and the condition of the road. But if I can upgrade that road and I can commit to them that we'll do this, if you will do this, and your development, oh, by the way, has to fit with this in terms of an approved vision for the area. Look, this is business. I mean, it's the way areas grow and develop. I can cite you examples all over the Atlanta region where these kinds of things have occurred. Don't misunderstand what we're saying here. We're not saying that we're going to go out and build this glorious infrastructure for all these developers and they're going to come in and make a lot of money and gain profits. We're going to tell them, we've got some money to help. If your plan fits with what we want to do, we'll put money into the infrastructure. But we're not going to give you a free ride. The impetus here is to try and build upon a vision and to strive an institutional way of reaching that vision by having seed money. If we can take our own money and put it towards something that the community believes in and feels is right, then we have more leverage when these types of developments come out. So, I mean, I understand your point, but I have, over my experience, I can tell you I've worked on numerous projects all over Cobb County, some out of the state, where I've seen an area that was headed in one direction, and the direction completely changes by virtue of the fact that a local community puts a stamp on an area and says, this is what we want, and we're gonna put some money in here to make this happen. So that's the philosophy behind this. I mean, y'all shouldn't get hung up on what will it actually be, what will the specifics be. I mean, I know that's important, but there'll be another time to vet that as we move forward with our planning processes.
So the question that we're voting on, John, did you have your hand up as if you were gonna ask another question?
I was gonna make a comment that one part of having a plan is that you give certainty not only to the community, but you also give certainty to the developers. The developers like to know what the plan is, because they don't wanna come and invest in an office building and then have the county turn around and put a distribution facility next to them when that wasn't what they were told was gonna happen. They'd rather have an office building with another office building. You know, they like the certainty as well. That's the value of the plan and the value of the seed money, is that now you have the county as a partner for something consistent instead of just haphazard taking what you get when it shows up.
So effectively, that's the question. Does this group, let me see if I can read what the question is. A motion to approve the economic development package as presented with the two areas, the Lee Road Extension, LCI, and Thornton Road, as the two that would be built out and would be, the 10 million would be devoted toward them.
And does that
With the
10 million
plans,
come out
when
of
the
the
plans
51
happen.
million that is dedicated for transportation?
Come out of 51%.
51%, and I was just
Yeah.
equating it to.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the allocation would be entirely up to the board and to what pressures are being applied in either of these two areas as we move forward. But, I mean, Chris and I have talked about this for a long time. It's really about the biggest bang for the buck. I can't tell you how many times I'll have developers come into my office and they'll go, what's the plan for this road? And I go, don't have a plan because don't have any money. So they would like to be there, they'd like to conform to what we want, but they're not gonna go build, you know, a $400,000 or $500,000 segment of road just for their one development. They wanna know the bigger picture. So your point's well taken. I think at the end of the day, the question that Tina just described is, do y'all support this in terms of adding infrastructure for these two areas to spawn economic development, to hopefully make these areas more sustainable, higher quality for the future, and the benefactor, or the benefit of that, or the benefactors of all of that would be an expansion of the tax base, bringing more tax dollars into the county. But we have to turn away things when we can't support it because of infrastructure.
So Al has a question, and then I really want to call the question.
When will the case studies be completed?
March.
Yes.
It's in March, okay,
Well, I do
That's
have,
just the Thornton Road one.
okay.
That's not the rivers, that's not the Highway 92 one.
now, I am a little confused because I thought Highway 92 was already set for what we're doing. What happened to the plan, or is it
So
completed with
the
the money?
LCI for 92, yes, is set. I think what we're talking about is really
The Lee Road extension.
The Lee Road extension. So is this piece right here. This already has a development plan,
Okay,
and this Lee Road here is going to be widened already.
okay.
What we're talking about is making the
The
connection.
extension right there.
And,
Okay.
and the LCI study has been completed, it's been accepted and approved by the Atlanta Regional Commission. We're qualified to get some support for projects and activities. There's a lot of components to that. Like I said, the Lee Road extension is the linchpin to make that, to create that dynamic area. But there's sidewalk projects, there's trail projects, all of which would be considered part of how money might be directed to those areas if the development activity starts to move. So, you know, we've got plans in place for the 92 LCI that have been adopted and accepted. We're waiting on the study for the Thornton Road area. But again, the question is, are these the two areas that make sense in terms of devoting economic development money out of the SPLOST program in the amount of $10 million to help put a surge to either one or both of these areas to create some opportunities for growth that we manage and that we can control, rather than having to piecemeal things because of development pressure that comes at us.
One quick question. Randy, what you're saying is, to bring it back to the SPLOST, the money that would be put aside would have to be spent over the 6 years or somewhere? Okay.
Right.
So I want to call the question, and let's talk about who can vote.
As far as District 1, there's no one here. District 2, we have Marcus, and y'all correct me if I miss somebody, but Marcus, Mel, and Pearl are voting from District 2. District 3, Susan's here, John's here, Millicent's here, so that's 3. Daphne, sorry, you do not get to vote tonight. District 4, Michael Young, Forrest is out, Al, and Mike is alternate number 1. And then Kenny does not get to vote tonight. Sorry, Kenny. So Michael, Al, and Mike on District 4.
So the question is a motion to approve the economic development package as presented with the 2 areas, Lee Road Extension, LCI, and Thornton Road being what the focus would be. All those saying aye, actually, I guess you have to raise your hand so we can count it. So those who are permitted to vote, could you raise your hand for the yes? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and anyone who is permitted to vote no? Okay, so it's 8 to 1. Thank you.
We started this conversation with talking about Thornton Road as a road that drives right into the biggest airport in the world. This isn't gonna mess up the drivability, is it?
Of State Route 6?
Yeah.
No. No. The intent is to create a community that can be vibrant and sustainable.
More stoplights and more,
No. Listen, our policy, which we recommended to the state, was we don't want any more traffic signals on State Route 6.
Okay.
So,
Thank
Keep
you.
it moving.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you all. You could applaud for having made a decision. We switch, sort of like we're switching the scenery now. So let's remove the economic development material in favor of, I'm not sure how you want to do this, the intersection part. Thank you.
we got 4 big maps that we can go.
4 big maps. And where do you want them?
I guess, in all 4 corners.
Well, so that people can see them, since they're not in the 4 corners. Let's get them on the table so that everybody can see them.
Big
It is, but it's okay.
If
If I didn't want to, if
On
I
a table.
didn't want to share, I want to put it on the table.
Okay, we can also put some, we have others, so we can put them on a stand.
Come. I work for the Following Investment Group and the IT. Following Investment. So I don't work for the company that does the marketing and the performance. I work for the companies that actually work with the distributors.
Oh, wait, that's part of what she's got to explain to you. He's got to explain it to you from the beginning.
It looks like there are different kinds of stars too.
There are different kinds, yes.
All right, well, first, let me say that you guys did an excellent job with your homework on intersections.
And why would you say that, Randy?
Well, because they're right on mark. The intersections, a lot of the intersections that y'all define as having needs, you were right on mark. They're intersections that we've already been looking at. We recognize and understand that there's problems, and we've identified some solutions. It's going to take further study to come to the final conclusions about what the final solutions are. But you've landed on the right locations. Now, do we need to tweak this some? Yes, we probably do. Do we have enough money to build all of these and solve all of these intersection issues? No, we don't. But this is a process that I live every day. We're always looking at problems and how can we find solutions to transportation and mobility issues, and more importantly, where can we get money? So, having said all that, I want to go over your homework with you, and the maps that you have in front of you basically identify a lot of the locations that you all identified as part of your homework. So let me tell you, the concentric circles that you see, and I'm going to hand out something to you in a minute that shows in print basically what the map shows, but I don't want to hand that out to you yet. But the bigger the concentric circles are, that means more of you identified those as a problem area or an area of concern. Okay? So, like I said, I will hand you out a written list of those in a minute, but look at it this way. The bigger the circles, the more of you identified those locations as problem locations. If you see a star on it, it was already in our database. It was something that we already were looking at. Okay? But before you can be looking at that, but what I want to tell you right now is, some of you are going to look at the map and you're going, wait a minute, my project's not on there, or my intersection's not on there. So I want to hand out this list to you, or you've already got it, I think. And basically, what this list does is it extracts those things that you handed in as a part of your homework that are either part of another project that's either under construction or about to be under construction, or it's in design, or it's not eligible for this category, or it may be in the city of Douglasville. Actually, we had one in Carroll County. I'm sorry, I can't spend Douglas County money on that one. So those were extracted from those lists. So I want to give you 20 seconds, look over the list. If you want to talk about any of those, I'll be glad to answer questions. But these are all things that came off and are not reflected on the map.
So these came off.
So all of these came off.
Correct.
Okay.
They came off because
And the reasons they came off are on the sheet.
Yeah, they're on the sheet. They're either in the city of Douglasville, they're already being handled through another project, or they're in design, or they're already projects that are moving. Okay. All right. So, any questions or concerns about what come off the map?
That's a mess.
Going once?
Which one is that?
Going twice? So, we're done. So, anything that you see on this list is off the map, and it may have been that you handed it in, but for whatever reason, based on what's on this list, it's not there. All right, so now, I explained to you, here's all my papers. All right, I told you I'd give you a written, yeah, I did. Oh, no, let me have that. I told you I'd give you a written spreadsheet that shows everything on these maps. I'm going to go through this with you once you get it. If you look at priorities 1 through 4 on the left column, it shows you the number of votes or the number of people who identified those intersections as being problem intersections. And then it shows the actual location or the name of the intersection. And then you see an asterisk in the last column that shows that those were also DCDOT defined projects, meaning that they would have a star on them on the map. If you notice, there's only one in that 1 through 4 priority that doesn't have a DCDOT star on it. That's 92 and Riverside Parkway. I'll tell you why it doesn't. Geometrically and from a capacity standpoint, there's nothing wrong with that intersection. It operates fine. I know some people want and think that it needs a traffic signal today. That's an issue that we continue to monitor, we continue to look at, but we've gone to the Georgia Department of Transportation on numerous occasions with the data, and they've looked at it as well, which they have to approve any permit for a traffic control device at that location. And our studies show that the traffic signal doesn't meet the warranting criteria today, and and the state has come to the same conclusion. So that's why you don't see a DCDOT defined project asterisk by that project.
Highway 92 is it's a state route,
Correct.
so it's under their jurisdiction.
So when you say defined project, does that mean it's already being worked on?
No,
Or is it-
when I say that it's a DCDOT defined project, it's a project that you all said, hey, this is a problem intersection. But it's also a project that the Douglas County Department of Transportation has identified in its own database as being an intersection that needs attention.
Okay.
So that one intersection, we're saying, we don't hold it in our database as needing attention right now. We do monitor it, and at some point it's going to warrant a traffic signal, but both the Douglas County Department of Transportation and the Georgia Department of Transportation, as of the latest numbers that were looked at, it doesn't warrant a traffic control, a stop-and-go traffic control device at that location.
Okay.
Now, the others that you see highlighted in yellow, which are priority number 5, all of those are intersection locations that only one individual out of your group identified. But those are still good projects. They're projects that are needed. You'll see there's a few. Post Road at West Banks Mill Pool Road. Well, let me go back. Highway 166 at Caps Ferry Road. Again, we don't have an asterisk there. There's needs. There's going to be needs there in the future, but right now that intersection operates at a level of service A. So there's no real need at that location in terms of capacity or congestion. Now, we have had a few people. When you go back and look at the accident histories, they've ran through the intersection and hit the embankment. But when you read the traffic crash reports that I read, there's usually good reason for that. And it can be anything from cell phones to alcohol to, I just didn't know the intersection stopped. Yet there are rumble strips there, there's stop ahead signs, and there's stop signs. The other is going down the list, again, you'll see Post Road at West Banks Mill Pool Road, Post Road at Mason Creek Road, and Chapel Hill at West Chapel Hill Road. We don't have DCDOT activity in our database at either of those locations. I'm going to tell you the reason why. One of the things that starts our investigation into a problem area is citizen calls and citizens complaints. We've got nothing in our database that shows we've had an enormous amount or even a small amount of calls regarding Post Road at West Banks Mill Pool Road. Now, a few years ago, when the 2 schools went in on Mason Creek Road, we had all kind of calls about Mason Creek at Post Road. How many of you remember what that intersection looked like prior to the traffic signal going in and the improvements? Do you see a vast difference from what it used to be?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. So we took that one off because we fixed that intersection now. That's not to say that in the future we may have to do some more things to continue to deal with traffic growth in that area, but right now it's operating at acceptable levels of service. Chapel Hill Road at West Chapel Hill Road, we added a left turn lane at that intersection about eight years ago. There are some problems at that location on Chapel Hill Road, but they're more associated with the high school and is it elementary or middle school? Elementary school than it is with that specific intersection itself. So you don't see an asterisk by that. The next one is Anawake Road at Stewart Mill Road at Cove Terrace. That's the multi-way stop on Stewart Mill Road. I don't know who submitted that. It is a multi-way stop. We don't have enormous queues there. We don't have calls. We don't have indications that there's problems there. But somebody identified that, but it's not in our database.
So you're just looking for citizens to call your office or your department and what's the complaint?
Well, that's the normal course of what occurs. I mean, we studied the whole
No, it
network.
was just a question.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing. They look at traffic data plus.
No, I just, that was the only thing. I just was
Yeah.
curious. I
Yeah.
didn't know that you're looking for citizens to
Plus
just call and
accident.
say, hey.
Well,
accident
yeah,
data,
I
too.
mean, certainly, we can't have our engineers all over the network at all times, but, so we welcome, the public to give us a call and say, hey, there's a problem here, can you go look at it and investigate it? And we do a lot of that, and nothing comes out of it sometimes because we don't find a problem. We look at very specific engineering guidelines when we look at problem intersections or problem safety issues. We follow the engineering guidelines and the manual of traffic control devices in the way that we examine these situations. And if we validate a problem, you can believe we put it on our list and we look for a way to solve the problem if we can. So I hope that answers your question. But yes, we do. That's not how every project gets developed, but we certainly wait on people to call and let us know about things that they know about that we might not know about. So Highway 92 at Graythorn Commons, that was on the list. That's, I'm sure, an issue with people trying to turn out onto 92 during peak travel periods. But we have not targeted a specific project at that location. And Riverside Parkway at Arndale Court, which is, again, a residential subdivision. I'm sure that during certain hours of the day, it's difficult to get out and enter the flow of traffic, but we haven't identified a project there. So this is basically a spreadsheet summary of what's on the map. It shows you what we concur with and what we don't concur with as a transportation agency. Not to say that the perception is that there's some issue there, but in our evaluation using the engineering standards that we have to use, we've not found a problem at those locations that rise to the level that would cause us to want to put an asterisk by it.
But not 22 out of 23 of the top projects, we pretty much agreed with.
Yeah, I mean, that's
What
why I
you
said
said.
you guys did a great job, because you basically pointed in the same direction that we're pointing, and we agree with you. These are all problem locations, and these were identified in our database. Now, there were a few other locations that we've identified that y'all did not pick up on. So, I want you to be aware of those as well. And there are 6 locations here, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about each of these once you get them. First one is Sweetwater Church Road at Doris Road. I don't know how many are familiar with that location. It's at the very, very top of the county on the west side. You probably are not familiar with it, but it's an intersection that has horrendous problems and has significant needs. And it's primarily Paulding County traffic that's coming into Douglas County that's creating that issue. I can tell you right now that Paulding County, my counterpart in the transportation agency in Paulding County, and I have had numerous discussions about it. I've had discussions with Paulding County commissioners about it. They're willing to pay for part of the funding to correct that intersection out of their SPLOST program. It needs left turn lanes, it needs right turn lanes, it's already been designed. And while I haven't brought anything to my board yet, one of the things that Paulding County has offered to me, or to our agency and to Douglas County, is that if we will participate, they'll pay for a large portion of the cost of correcting that intersection. So it's within our borders, we're responsible for it, we can't exclude something that may not get used by a lot of our residents, but it's still our responsibility to take care of. So I want you to be aware of that. Post Road at the
When you
I-20
say a large portion, 75%, 80%, 90%?
of traffic.
No, of the dollars cost, of the cost.
We're probably at about a 50-50 match, which that's pretty gracious if, I mean, but they're doing it because they're getting the phone calls, you know. And they've got a SPLOST program and they're willing, and we've done things like this with other counties. It behooves jurisdictions to work together to solve problems, because some of these problems are multi-jurisdictional, and sometimes it makes sense to work together. So,
I wish you would tell the Republicans and the Democrats that.
I'm afraid that's a way above my pay grade. It's out of my jurisdiction, that's right. The next one is Post Road at the I-20 westbound ramp. We desperately need a right turn lane there for traffic turning right off Post Road to go westbound on I-20. The reason we do is we've had a lot of crashes there because the left turners, when the arrow goes green, the left turners go and the right turners don't know that they're supposed to yield to the left turns. We need a right turn lane that's channelized so that we can get a yield condition there, so we get more orderly traffic flow and we reduce the potential for safety and crashes at that intersection.
I had a question.
Okay.
Because that was one of my concerns. Could some of this be resolved by just cutting back some of that greenery or shrubbery at a lot of the intersections? Because like and I did Post Road and Pool, and it was because I had to pull out in the street just to be able to see.
Yeah,
if something
and that's
was
why,
coming.
it's a line of sight issue. And those are issues that we struggle with, especially this time of year, because of the right-of-way overgrowth and you know, the fact that you've got to use a vertical boom mower to go out and trim all that. That's why we didn't have an asterisk by that intersection, is because, you know, while somebody put it on the list, they perceived there to be a problem there. We don't find in our databases that there's a problem based on the operational capacity of the intersection. But during the summer months and the growing season, you know, sight lines become an issue, and we're on that. We're working on those things. 166 has got a lot of sight line issues. We're working with the state on that. So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Because I think even if I'm coming off of 20 from Villa Rica, if I could see what was coming across the bridge, but you really can't see because of all the...
Well, these problems that we've identified here with the asterisk, they're not line of sight issues. They're actually geometric issues or issues that have to do with the operational capacity of the intersection.
Does the Post Road and I-20 ramp, does that fall onto the state?
Yeah, but if I waited on the state to do that, I'd probably be waiting a long time. It's a problem that we need to address with the state, which I'm going to get into as we continue to talk about where we can leverage funds in this program. But yes, it's a partnership. The state has their own priorities, but we have to tell them what our priorities are, and we have to work together to find the funding. And sometimes if we as a local agency, going back to the seed money issue, seed money concept again, if I can go to the state and I can say, look, I'll build the right turn lane here, or if y'all will participate, we'll put this much money into that project.
But Randy, isn't there already a project on the board or on the plate to do something with the bridge at Post Road? And if that's the case, it's not?
No.
It's taking a beating, all the trucks on it.
Yeah, not at this time, there's not.
Okay.
No. There is the Bankhead Highway project at Man Road with the realignment of Post Road and Mason Creek Road in order to give direct continuity. But no, there's nothing programmed right now for the Post Road interchange.
Okay.
No. So we feel like that one needs to be one that y'all need to consider. Mount Vernon Road at Skyview Drive, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that intersection. It's a signalized intersection. It's got some problems. We need some turn lanes off the main line for right and left turns. And Colonial Christian School is on Mount Vernon Road, and we need the additional auxiliary lanes at that location as well. We added some turn lanes a few years ago on the main line off of Skyview Drive on to Mount Vernon, but we didn't add right turn lanes, and we don't have the additional lanes on the Mount Vernon side, which is where the Colonial Christian School is at, and it's a lot of pressure at that intersection. Another intersection is Kings Highway at Dorset Shoals Road. That's a signalized intersection at Kings Highway. It's a problem intersection, needs auxiliary lanes, it is signalized, but we're having a very difficult time operating it properly because of the grades and because of the geometrics at the intersection. So wanted that on your radar screen. Another intersection is Yancey Road at Central Church Road. That's a multi-way stop location. If any of you have been through that, it's a very screwy looking intersection. It's very odd, very difficult to negotiate, needs attention, so we want that on your radar screen. And then finally, Riverside Parkway at Old Lower River Road. That's where the schools are that are right by the fire station there on Riverside Parkway behind the fire station. That's a problem during the mornings, particularly with the school traffic. And we need some left turn lanes and right turn lanes out on Riverside Parkway there. So we wanted that on your radar screen. So you've got both lists. We're going to work now toward a process to have you try and prioritize what you've got before you. And I'm going to turn it over to Tina. She's going to direct you through the process.
It's a lot. So to summarize what Randy has explained around things to take into consideration. So let me do the big picture. Basically, in a minute, we're going to put up the overlap, what I'm calling the overlap of the intersections that are in the priority groups 1 to 4, with the exception of that 92 at Riverside Parkway, because he explained that that didn't fit the criteria. So there are going to be 14 choices there. Each intersection costs at an average about 1.5 million.
Well, yeah, 1.4 million. So we got 15 million here. So you can see we're not going to get all the way down this list. This is about prioritizing getting worst problems, getting money directed to the worst problems first. Like I said earlier, it's an ongoing process. We'll be looking at intersections well beyond this SPLOST.
So the things to take into consideration, and some of which he talked about, are the order of magnitude as you look. We're going to be asking you basically bit by bit to choose the most important ones that you think need to be addressed. And then we'll take them off the board, and then we'll do the next most important ones. So the things that to be considered are the order of magnitude, the right projects in the right locations, spread across the county ultimately as you're voting across the various intersection options. Intersections with highest traffic flows, safety issues, where safety issues are a priority. And the countywide priority more than what the costs are. So knowing that one would cost 1.5 million and another would be 500,000. The issue is, what does the county need? At least when you're making your vote.
Yeah, let me give you a little more information about this order of magnitude issue. If you look on those maps, you'll see we've talked about it before. And if anybody needs the definitions, I've got them here. Definition of an arterial or collector road. Most of these locations are on arterial and collector roads. But if you see an intersection that's an arterial to arterial intersection, then that's probably going to be a higher priority because it's carrying more traffic. So think about the order of magnitude, the thoroughfare plan as it relates to those projects. Also, think about fund funds leveraging capacity. I just told you about the situation with Paulding County. I told you about Post Road at I-20. Any of those types of projects, there is potential that I can go to the state and say, look, we're willing to spend X amount of dollars on adding a right turn lane at this interchange if you all will participate with us. Now, a lot of times they will look in their databases and they'll go, yep, we see the need there, we'll participate. So my point is, as you look at this in terms of order of magnitude, think about those improvements that are at or on or adjacent to or the side streets of a state route. Because this is about priorities first, but how far can we make these dollars go? So I can make the dollars go further down the list if I've got opportunities to leverage funds. And anything on a state route would give me that opportunity.
Okay. So, I'm going to read out your choices. Sometimes people can think it through better than, hear it as well as see it. I'm going to read your choices. You have been given, those of you who are able to vote tonight, I'm so sorry, so sorry. Basically, the instructions for voting, we're doing this sort of like tier by tier. So let me just show you this. I'll put it here for a second. You have green 3, it's worth 3 points. It's your first choice. Don't get confused. So it's worth 3 points because these are weighted differently, and that's how it's gonna be easier to see what you all really care about. So your first choice is 3, worth 3 points, and it's the green one. The second choice is worth 2 points, and you can't get confused. And the third choice is going to be worth 1 point. So consider what we're going to be offering you. Oh, let me just do it. We're going to do it until the time runs out, and then we're going to continue wherever we ended next week. You have the 14 choices that are the overlap with the county's projects. Then, those are the top 1 through 4 priorities. The green ones that I'm going to put up also, these are 6, but they are saying, would you please consider because of the various reasons that Randy gave? Would you please, can you bump effectively any of the 14? Because basically, as he said, only about 10 will ultimately probably be able to be covered, but we want to have a ranking of everything. So you're being asked to think of all the intersections that you basically, what is the first one? If there were only one, what is the first one, the most important one, and you put your green 3? The second most important one, and then the third. And we're going to see what happens, and we're going to basically vote multiple times because it'll get clear. The votes will show us with the weighting. They'll show us. Now, here's the question. If there are any in the yellow area, where they got one of your votes and the county also thinks they need attention. If there is anyone in there that you would like to add to basically the slate of things to consider because of these criteria that were discussed, this would be the time for you to suggest them. So, look at the yellow and see if there's any intersection that is just crying, that you want to make a pitch, but a very short pitch, of course, make a pitch for including among these options? So I'm not hearing anything. I think we have plenty of choices, don't you think? Okay, then, pardon?
I got my three.
You have, is everyone ready? Excellent. Let the voting begin, and you can only, obviously, you want three
You gotta come up
choices.
there and-
Yeah, stick them on the white, right above them.
Bad intersection.
Cold. Freezing. Almost as bad as San Francisco was.
It's not the one that's working. It's a dead
Can I
phone.
hear,
It has no seal in it or nothing.
Yeah, you know, you're exactly right. It's like
okay,
a biological.
as these guys are doing the actual adding, what strikes you?
Yeah, that's right.
The mall.
The Georgia Highway 5 at Douglas Boulevard? Would we say that this is the number one? From, okay,
Circles on the,
and don't you know? Yeah? Okay. So, yeah. So basically, this is the way we are gonna proceed. This is your first choice, okay? Now, when I look at this, I see this is way too scattered. So basically, this is so interesting. This isn't usually what happens when I do this kind of thing. So basically, all we got from that round is this one. And so, given the fact that it is 5 of 8, and we have some homework to give, let's get clear about what, you now have additional homework. So, the additional homework you can write on your sheets. Please take these sheets home. You can know that this one, which is right here, the first one, Georgia Highway 5 at Douglas Boulevard, is safe, as it were. That is your number one choice. When we come back next week, we will look at these and we might vote differently, who knows, because I gotta take in this information and figure out how we can be efficient in basically sequencing the next ones, okay? So, so your homework is really to think about it and think about, maybe come prepared with your top 5. As I'm saying that, I'll have to think about that in terms of math. Come with your top 5 and even, prioritize them as much as you can so you'll be ready to dot whatever, whatever the instruction is, you'll have your own prioritized list. Okay?
So we're gonna redot
We're
without that
gonna
one.
redot without that one.
Gotcha.
Okay? See, and so this was interesting, yet it didn't show anything. It didn't show a real agreement yet. Okay?
Follow you.
So my theory is at a minimum that you all haven't had a chance to really see. You gave in your homework, you didn't know what the cross was, and then you've been invited at least to think of these 6 additional locations, to include them for all the reasons that Randy said. So that's what we're gonna do. Now, Randy, do you have one?
Yes, for the
sidewalks.
Yeah.
So, as he is getting that and handing that out, let me just sort of say that next week, therefore, if y'all could pay attention, it'll help in our last 5 minutes.
You're not going to be my favorite.
Hey, listen, I only give out homework because she told me I gotta give it.
Well, and the only reason we're doing homework is so you're gonna be prepared to be intelligent citizens to help, so that you knew as much as you could possibly know in the given time frame, on behalf of the whole county. Yes, we do. So, Mark is pointing out that we have a 6 here. And does that make sense to you all?
Yeah.
You
That
wanna
makes
make
number
that
2.
the second, number 2? Okay, go. So I think we have to applaud ourselves because at least we've come up with 2 that people are thinking of. And then write 6 with.
Mark, where is that one on the board? That's
That's
Highway 92 and Anawake is down.
not far.
Fine.
It's a priority 4.
Right? Yeah. So, just so we're getting the diversity of where we are in the county too.
Let's have pins next week, and what we can do is put color pins, because remember the first night when we did pins and they were clear, and we couldn't really see it, so it didn't help us with what we were trying to prove. So we'll get some color pins and we'll start doing that, because that's another, because as we vote bit by bit, that's the kind of thing we want to think about to see whether we are really being proportional, especially since we can't do it all. So I'm going to say what next week is, and then I'm presuming that the homework is being passed out.
Well, no, not yet.
Nope, not yet. Okay, well, let me
But
tell you what homework is.
I can tell you real quick, I want to go over the category real quickly because it's a sidewalk and roadway upgrade categories, and I'll refer you back to this. You all should have it because you were told to keep up with it. It's sidewalk and roadway upgrade projects. Here's some examples. Continued, the Post Road Bridge replacement, Transportation Center, Dearly Lane sidewalk and upgrade, other schools and activity locations to be determined. So what I want to tell you is we've got 3 bridges that are below the sufficiency rating and have to be posted for special load limits for both freight vehicles, trucks, school buses. School buses, big deal. Those bridges are Post Road at the Dog River, of course, everybody's heard about that one. Reagan Road at Mud Creek and North Helton Road over the Dog River, the bridge at North Helton Road over the Dog River. We just took the resurfacing map, and y'all can pass these around. Just generally put the locations with a red dot on the resurfacing map. So, between now and next Thursday, I'm not asking you to go get up under the bridge and look at the piles and all of that, but just get familiar with those bridges, because those are 3 deficient bridges that really need attention. Will we have enough money to do all of them? No. Priority wise, you know, I would have to tell you, and I think most of you might agree if you're familiar with what's going on around the county, is the Post Road Bridge has always had issues and it's always been a problem. So,
Can you give us some traffic numbers on those, how many people are
Yeah.
crossing? I mean,
Okay.
is the email to us?
we'll send that out, traffic numbers where those bridge locations are.
Are the bridges in here anywhere? Because I didn't get them.
I'm sorry?
Are the bridges located, stated in here, or did you just?
No. we
No,
just
there's
named
just
them out.
examples, and I just handed out a map that shows where those bridges are. The red dots would show you where those bridges are.
Okay.
Okay?
On
Yeah.
exact location, because some
Well-
of them I had no idea where.
Yeah, the main thing, I mean, if you go to, there's 2 bridges on North Helton Road. Okay. So it is,
We're gonna need to write that and send it out.
okay,
Yeah.
we'll send that out.
Some
Just,
directions, because
I
I've
mean,
never heard that.
the map shows generally where they are or where they're at over those water tributaries, but
Okay.
we'll try to get you a mile a landmark or something where you can find those, okay? Then the second part of the examples for project examples continued is the sidewalk and roadway, the sidewalk projects. I'm gonna hand out a list of 10 schools that were looked at as part of our comprehensive transportation plan. These are the Tier 2 schools, and I want to read to you right out of the plan. Most of these schools have favorable conditions for supporting Safe Routes to Schools initiatives. One reason for placing a school into Tier 2 is the school is located a greater distance from adjacent residential development, meaning that, it's a little further out and there's less potential for kids to walk, but you might capture more subdivisions and more walkers if you come up with a strategic plan to address sidewalks along those and around those schools. The street patterns indicate dispersed residential developments that have configurations favoring cul-de-sacs, so a lot of the subdivisions have cul-de-sacs where people can gather in a community and have what we call walking trains or walking buses, where a member of the community would actually, people will sometimes alternate and take 10 kids, as an adult and walk them to school. Most of these, in most cases, and you can read this for yourself, a pedestrian or bicyclist must follow the same path as a vehicle. Travel distance is greater and longer distances discourage walking and bicycling. So these are 10 schools that we know we've got needs for more pedestrian and sidewalks around these schools. They're all in the county. They're none of them in the city specifically. So the city would deal with some of their own as part of their sidewalk projects. Just want you to look at these, think about the area, and we're going to try and focus in on directing some funding to either some of these schools or all of them, if we have enough, and I can tell you we probably won't, depending on what we come up with. So those are the 2 homework assignments, just to get familiar with those schools and look at the need for sidewalks around those areas. If you want to look at other activity centers, like for example, around libraries or other institutional places, or anywhere you think sidewalks could be an important part of the infrastructure, feel free to jot those down. And I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
Why isn't New Manchester on here?
New Manchester High School?
Yes, sir.
That's a good point. And the reason it wasn't on here is because when the study was conducted, the school didn't exist. But I would add that to this list.
Okay.
That's a good point.
So would everybody add New Manchester?
So they can walk to school?
Yes.
Any chance to get the Board of Education to help kick in on this?
Yes,
Okay, we've exceeded our 8 o'clock, so thank you very much. So next week, we will resume our intersections, go to the sidewalks, and then talk about fire and EMS.
So there you go.
Yeah, I said resume the intersections.